I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
The harder I want to hit you.
I'm happy because of being here today. Fuck you.
Come on, you want me to drive? You're supposed to be suicidal, remember? I'll
anybody
drive.
to drive?
Let's get in the car.
Fucking shit. Fuck me in the fucking ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with a brand new movie review. And this review is going to be for 2000's The Patriot, directed by Roland Emmerich and starring Mel Gibson. So, what is the plot of 2000's The Patriot? Well, it's essentially kind of like the American version of Braveheart in a way, if you do kind of think about it. It is similar with it's kind of similar in plot to Braveheart. They both star Mel Gibson. But the difference is, Braveheart's set in Scotland. This takes place in America, and is not directed by Mel Gibson. It's directed by a much lesser-known filmmaker named Roland Emmerich, who has directed films like Universal Soldier, Independence Day, The Day After Tomorrow. Those are great films. I like those films. I think Independence Day is easily his best work. But what is the plot of this movie? Well, it's 1776 in Colonel, South California. Benjamin Martin, a French Indian war hero haunted by his past, wants nothing more to live peacefully on a small plantation, and wants no part of a war with the most powerful nation in the world, Great Britain. Meanwhile, his two eldest sons, Gabriel, played by the late Heath Ledger, may he rest in peace, and Thomas, can't wait to enlist in a newly touched Continental Army. In South Carolina decides to join a rebellion against England. Gabriel immediately signs up to fight without his father's permission, but then William Tavington, British Dragoon, infamous for his brutal tactics, comes and burns the Martin plantation to the ground. Tragedy then strikes, and so Benjamin finds himself torn between protecting his family and seeking revenge by teaming up with Gabriel, along with being a part of the birth of a new, young, ambitious nation. So yeah, as for my reaction to this movie, well, I got recommended this film by a lot of my subscribers, quite a few of them, and especially I'd heard it's one of Roland Emmerich's best works according to many of those subscribers, as well as like much of Roland's work, and kind of, well, this was back in a day when he made those good films I mentioned. And now after watching this film, yeah, I can see why people definitely really like this movie. And honestly, I think it's easily another one of the his best movies for sure, and definitely one of the best historical epics along with Braveheart and Gladiator. And where would I rank this? Well, I honestly would have to rank this in third place. And what would I rank the fourth best historical epic? I would say first place Braveheart, second place Gladiator, third place this, fourth place Troy with Brad Pitt, which I need to review someday. So, now how was The Patriot made? Well, screenwriter Robert Rodat wrote 17 drafts of the script, and before there was an acceptable one. There was one early version when Anne was going to be pregnant with Gabriel's child when she dies in a burning church, and then Rodat wrote the script with Mel Gibson in mind for Benjamin Martin and gave the character 6 children to signal that preferences to executives. And after Gibson's 7th childbirth in the script got changed so that Martin had 7 children. Like the character, William Wallace that Gibson had portrayed in Braveheart and won the Oscars for doing that film 5 years before this had come out, it's kind of similar to Wallace's role in that film. Martin was a man who seeked to live his life in peace, but then revenge drives him to lead a cause against the national enemy after the life of an innocent family member is taken. Braveheart, it's his wife. This one, it's one of his 6 children. Originally, for the role, Harrison Ford was going to take the lead role, but Harrison Ford thought the role would be too violent, and it boiled the American Revolution to a guy wanting revenge. So it went to Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson was paid a record salary of $25 million, and Jude Law was going to originally play William Tavington, but he turned it down, and it went to Jason Isaacs. And when it came to Gabriel Martin, There were several actors in mind: Joshua Jackson, Elijah Wood, Jake Gyllenhaal, Brad Renfro, and then the choices got narrowed to either Ryan Phillippe or Heath Ledger. And the late Heath Ledger was chosen because Roland Emmerich thought he possessed the right kind of youth for the role. And I'm glad the role went to the late Heath Ledger, because if I'm going to be honest, I don't think anybody else could have played the role better. So, after the film was officially shot and marketed, The Patriot had its world premiere in Century City on June 27, 2000, and got theatrical release in the United States on June 30, 2000. Yeah, ironically, this came out the same year as Gladiator. This came out a month after Gladiator. And the movie got mixed to positive reviews from critics, and grossed a decent enough $215 million worldwide on a $110 million budget. But it got some controversy because of the anti-British sentiment, and it was criticized by historians because it was kind of fictional portrayal of British figures and atrocities. But when it comes to a film like this, historical accuracies don't always matter as long as you have the right story, as it shows like stuff like this, Braveheart, and Gladiator. If you do it like those, then you can get a right kind of film. Now let's get on with the good qualities in the story of The Patriot and why I think The Patriot was so great. So, it's pretty much a simple family man with a past that has to resurface when aggrieved, and the background story is very immersive in the whole Revolutionary War. The Civil War captain ignites Gabriel's inner ghost whose feared reputation precedes him, especially among the French, and Heath Ledger, who plays one of his sons, gets also caught in the turmoil of war and patriotism to defend his country. And Gibson knows full well the consequences of an oath, a reluctance to sanction his son's enlisting. And Ledger's young knight and naive, who is admitted to take a stand and defiance towards his father, adds to the story. So the casting of The Patriot was very brilliant. Mel Gibson gives a very moving performance as Ben Martin. This passionate man is trying desperately to keep his family together after the death of his wife. And also Heath Ledger also does great, and I think him and Mel Gibson have good dad and son chemistry with one another right there as well. And these two stars lead the cast in teaching such lessons to the viewers of what it means to be a patriot and a hero, the cost of freedom and the value of family. Like, now, if this is a film where you're wanting a bunch of accuracy, then you're probably just going to need to go to Barnes & Noble and pick, or somewhere else, or any kind of other bookstore, and just pick up a few other books. Read through those, and right there, and if you want like historical accuracy, because the thing is, sometimes like Braveheart and Gladiator were great films, but they're not historically accurate. Yeah, to be fair, you can't always be, there's some stuff you can't always be historically accurate towards. It does kind of make sense right there, and because, of course, well, and that's the thing, Roland Emmerich, like, unless you're not somebody like Ridley Scott, who will get mad at anybody for being historically inaccurate, the thing is, like, when Roland Emmerich did this film, he didn't go up criticizing historians that got mad. Any historians, at the very least, that criticized this film, at the very least, of Mel Gibson don't go bashing historians when either of them did Braveheart or this movie. And I think it was a very well done epic movie with some cheesy dialogue and stuff, but many movies contain cheesy lines all the time. Whenever a movie's trying to take it to the extreme or find a cheesy speech or two in the dialogue, it's a well-produced movie with a good theme and intense battle scenes, along with some well-acted-out drama. So how do we start off The Patriot? Well, we start off in the year 1776 when the movie takes place. It's during the American Revolutionary War, and Benjamin Martin, who's this veteran and widower of 7 children, gets called one day to Charlestown to vote in the South California General Assembly and levy supporting the Continental Army. So Benjamin abstains, who's very war against Great Britain and not wanting to force others to fight when he himself should not. But then the votes pass. Benjamin's oldest son Gabriel joins the Continental Army against his dad's wishes. Then we get to 4 years later, 1780, where Charlestown falls to the British Army, and Gabriel gets wounded and returns home carrying some dispatches. So the Martins care for wounded British and American soldiers before some dragoons arrive, led by William Tivington, our evil villain played by Jason Isaacs. And Tivington press gains the Martins African-American former slaves into the army as well, and Gabriel gets arrested as a spy. Thomas does try to save him, but Tivington kills Thomas, and then immediately has the house burned down, and the wounded Americans are executed. So Benjamin and two of his youngest sons ambush the British convoy that's transporting Gabriel. And Benjamin and the two sons slaughter all but one of the soldiers in front of his children. So they managed to save Gabriel. And that's kind of where our story is starting to take off. Martin's trying to get out of the whole violence life that he was in, just raise his family after his wife is dead. But then, of course, another war started. One of his sons has been involved in the war now, and so Martin now really has no other choice after saving his son from them. It's per like bridging on emotions like love, patriotism, and betrayal. These emotions are true to the story and relate well with the audience. There is some mild comic relief as well in the movie, like when you have simple-minded misunderstandings and character traits, and Braveheart really portrays humor to ease the tension very well. And the greatest of the film, as it really does, is it reminds us, in an incredibly well-done way, of the sacrifices, the losses, and the courage of the men whose lives and livelihoods, as their families give birth to the nation. The pain and suffering that brings these people to the point of revolution is what made the war itself very horrible, and it's perfectly portrayed well in this movie. Then, of course, many saw like the humorous things, like the dishonorable things that are in this film. Like, yeah, sure, some of them may have never happened. But, of course, like, the thing is that the movie wants you to really hate these bad guys. Like, these bad guys are awful people. That's the thing. Like, the movie wants you to really hate that stuff. So, the stuff in the movie is actually meant to make you hate the bad guys even more, and they want you to see Martin give them their comeuppance. Here. And it's true, like, back in the day, townspeople were burned alive in their homes or churches whenever they aided any rebels. Like war, it was definitely not kind of the polite kind of war back then. When a film is done well, the length doesn't matter. Like, this is a film that's 165 minutes long, and this could be long, short, or people will enjoy it. And when a film is done really well, the amount of time needed to be in the story should always be used. Like that. Like, this movie's 165 minutes long, and it does the runtime perfectly, beautifully well. The Patriot succeeds best in taking a story that we all think and we know, like the war for independence, and making it personal, and showing what the cost of war is. Even the end just seems, well, and it shows how a man can be pushed to war to the point no one in his family or friends, including himself, could believe he could ever reach. So after Gabriel's been rescued, he's going to go back to the Continentals. Benjamin tries to side against it, but eventually relents when Gabriel insists on going. So he leaves younger children to care of his sister-in-law, Charlotte, and then Benjamin meets his former commanding officer, Harry Burwell, played by Chris Cooper, who appoints him as colonel to raise a militia unit and places Gabriel under his father's command, much to kind of Gabriel's dismay. And Benjamin gets tasked with weakening Cornwallis's regiments in warfare, and French Major John Villeneuve helps train the militia and promises more French aid. And Gabriel asks his father why Villeneuve and other militia often mention Fort Wilderness, and Benjamin tells him because they're fighting while fighting the British Army. Benjamin eventually found some atrocities against British colonists by French soldiers in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and then they caught up with the retreating French at Fort Wilderness and killed but two of them, and then they present the severed heads of their comrades in Cherokee, and the tribe ended up betraying the French, and that caused Benjamin to never forgive himself, and that led him to abandon that life in the first place. Then, of course, Benjamin's militia then ambushes many other British patrols and supplies car weapons, including some of Cornwallis's personal effects, and they even abduct his two Great Danes. They do kind of joke about, like, maybe eating the dogs, but when it got to that scene, it was like, oh, please don't do that. And they're like, come on, 2 dogs make a great meal. Yeah, but then you see the next scene where they're laying down for the night, and they actually didn't eat them, and I was like, oh, thank God. If they ate them, I probably wouldn't have liked the characters that much, if they did that. Like, but I'm glad they didn't kill them. I'm glad they spared the 2 dogs. And like, even the 2 dogs kind of become their allies in the end. They kind of end up joining Benjamin in the end. In a way, because like Benjamin actually takes pretty good care of them. So they burn some more bridges and ferries that Cornwallis needs, and then Benjamin uses this dishonorable, embarrassing ploy to free his captured men. At one point in the film, and Cornwallis allows Tabington to do everything possible to arrest him. After they kind of discover the whole decoy soldiers and the dogs refusing to stay with them, and they go back with Benjamin and his army. Now, yeah, this isn't a movie you should take as a historical fact. Like, well, yeah, it's wrapped in history. Like, Benjamin Martin wasn't always really like there's not always a Benjamin Martin in war. Like, Martin is a war as every man. Like, the militia leader that got called into action to save a family that he tried to save by staying out of the war, but he couldn't. The war came back to him, so he had no choice but to go back in the war to save his family for real. And bloodthirsty, he could become, and that really scared him a lot. The film does show the historical events that do create a war, division of the country, and how it kind of, the thing is like, the real war kind of took about almost 6 years in real life. Like, that's the thing, though. It's not trying to be like history books. It's kind of trying to be like its own thing. The Patriot boasts great sets, shots, and costumes supported with a great score by John Williams. Like, that's the thing. Like, I wish John Williams got nominated for the score for this movie. The only point, like, against the film's cinematography is, like, the whole slow motion shots, like, as well. But, like, that I do wish John Williams was nominated for best score. Like, I feel, because he clearly was kind of robbed for best score, because he does a great score in this film. And much like with Braveheart, which was not historically accurate either, the story film can't really be taken by means of history. Like, it exaggerates the whole Continental Army atrocities that got committed by the British, but if you get past that, you can enjoy the film, and it follows a good pace, and the action scenes are excellent and well staged, even if some are a little over the top. And Braveheart exceeds the Patriot for interesting story developments and characterization, but the Patriot is still very solid. And the film gets centered and held together by Mel Gibson's performance, which is another one of his best performances to date. This guy did well playing the lead in Braveheart. This guy does well pretty much kind of somewhat playing the same character, except this character's not Scottish. This character is actually American. Much credit is due to the cinematographer, director, screenwriter, editor for being able to take melodrama to such high levels. And there's many characters and inner struggles that get bought out. Benjamin Martin's character is really compelling because he's not so perfect. He makes mistakes, he has regrets, and he has to deal with his temper. There's not much of a pretense in the film, like it never claims to, though, either. It's a film that gives us great characters, a good story, and solid delivery. So, Tavington then, deciding to try to get Martin arrested, gets aided by Wilkin. He has several homes burned and their families executed, and Benjamin's family then has to flee the plantation to live in a guerrilla settlement with former enslaved residents, one of them being one of their mates that got taken from them earlier, that the children reunite with. And while they're there, it turns out the youngest daughter, Susan's starting to really hate her own dad and doesn't want him to come back, but Gabriel then kind of lies that Susan's missing him, like, because he doesn't want to tell Martin that news. And while there, Gabriel also marries his betrothed Anne, and Tavington's brigade raids Anne's town and assembles everyone in the church, but including Anne, though. And knowing that they're aiding the militia, unites the location of the camp, and one townsperson does give it away. Tavington goes against his word and immediately burns down the church. Right there. So, like, and like, heck, one of the British people's even looks a little uncomfortable doing this because he knows that this is going overboard. At this point, like, burning down a church is definitely going way overboard, but Gabriel and several soldiers discover the tragedy, and they attack Tavington's encampment, and Tavington kills Gabriel before fleeing because Gabriel knows that's his wife that's just been murdered and wants to avenge her, but Tavington then kills him before he can and gains the upper hand on him. And then Benjamin sees Gabriel's dead body and is devastated, and then he contemplates desertion, but after seeing the red flag Gabriel repaired, he regains his confidence back. He gets reminded of his patriotic dedication and decides to rejoin the others. So in a way, like, it kind of does the heroic BSOD cliche with the protagonist. After seeing his son's dead body, he thinks he can't really do this war now any longer and is going to desert them, but then he sees the American flag and know what Gabriel probably would have wanted to do. He regains the confidence back and he joins the army for the battle. So I like that this, even though this is kind of following history, it kind of really does feel like a fictional story in a way. A story about a protagonist you kind of want to connect, you want to see develop, you want to see grow. So Martin devises this battlefield tactic that uses this pride against him. Martin's militia really joins the Continental Army. Benjamin confronts Cornwallis' troops at the Cowpens, and then Benjamin and Tavington engage in personal combat, and Tavington wounds Benjamin and prepares to deliver the coup de France, but Benjamin dodges the attack and impales Tavington and actually kills him. And like right here, this is a pretty epic crowd-pleasing fight because Tavington is such a piece of shit antagonist that as soon as you meet this guy, you want this guy to straight up get what he deserves. right there. And you like, especially after he kills Gabriel, you just had it with him, and you want Benjamin to get his revenge for his death, especially because this guy's now killed both his oldest sons, taken their maid, has burned down their home. And even now, also has now killed Gabriel's wife as well in a church. Like, it's just satisfying it's such a satisfying death scene when Benjamin ends up impaling Tavington and finally gives him his comeuppance. And the battle then becomes a column victory, and Cornwallis ends up retreating. And throughout kind of like this whole middle act area, you get some other tearjerker moments as well. Like, when you hear when Susan explains that she hates her dad for a brief bit, the point where Gabriel lies saying she misses him, but then Benjamin, when he sees Susan, she refuses to speak to him, and wants him and Gabriel depart, and when she refuses to say goodbye at first, and Susan sees him leaving, and then immediately breaks down, "Wait, don't go, Dad, I'll say anything, please don't go," and right there is actually just and he runs up and he hugs her immediately. Like, that right there is actually a very heartfelt, teary-eyed moment. That really does show, this does show that Roland back then could really make you connect to characters, and that does feel like a really real-life scenario where sometimes whenever parents leave, like, that could be the last time you probably could see them. Like, this felt like a very real moment. And I watched the scene for the first time, I actually shed a few tears in my eyes at that sequence. Or even another teary-eyed moment comes near the finale when Gabriel gets killed by Tavington. His father's just like doesn't know what to do anymore. The church getting burned down, even especially with Anne there, who weeps and her mother comforts her. Like, that's also a very sad moment right there, because Gabriel just got married to her, and then Tavington immediately just ruins that happiness and then pretty much traps her in the church because her and several other people basically aided a few of these rebels. And even some of the other soldiers in the army were actually not very pleased with this idea because they know that's low for them. But the church scene does make sense because this scene shows you how much of a despicable person Tavington is in this movie, and the movie wants you to cheer when he dies. And believe me, I was very satisfied when this guy died, and when Benjamin fought him to the death in the end, it was a very crowd pleasing final battle. And yeah, this movie may not be 100% accurate, but it's still touching nonetheless. It's still very well written. It's still very well directed. I still enjoy a lot of things about this movie. The outstanding acting, the cautions in the plot. There's even terrific suspense, drama, laughs, action, and many tearjerker moments, like the tearjerker moments I just mentioned. Right there, and a terrific supporting cast even. Like, yeah, Jason Isaacs, Tom Wilkinson, Chris Cooper, and Seki Kariko that support Mel Gibson and Heath Ledger who lead the cast. They also contribute to this film's ability to capture its audience in the gripping tale about the fight for our nation's freedom. And the cast and the brilliance of Roland Emmerich, like, the technical aspects and special effects also deserve the praise that they have received. Like, the open field battle scenes are very incredible. The cautionary department really do a great job at recreating the whole attire of all the days back then, and each and every detail is very perfected well to give the audience a true sense of what it's kind of like to live during this time of history, what life is like during this time of history. But they're yeah, now, it doesn't happen. This movie may not always be 100% accurate to what really happens, but this stuff really makes it work very well. That's why I really like this film a lot. And I see why a lot of my subscribers really like this film. So now we get on with the finale of the movie. So, Cornwallis, after the whole final battle, gets besieged at Yorktown, and his subordinate surrenders to the American and French forces. Then, Benjamin and his army are victorious, and they all return home, and Benjamin goes back to his family, discovers that his former militia rebuilt his homestead and honored Gabriel's dream of building a new world. So, yeah, that is the end of The Patriot. That's how this 165-minute epic ends. And it's actually a decently uplifting epic ending for a historical epic. Because usually a lot of them don't either end either bittersweet or just kind of pure downer. Like, especially Braveheart. In Braveheart, they did somewhat triumph, but the difference is it didn't end as happy because his character got ambushed, captured, and died. In a very iconic scene at the very end of that movie. But his army still triumphed in the end, and they were still able to win Scotland's freedom. Here, in this movie, he actually comes out alive. He kills the big bad that's killed both his sons, that killed his daughter-in-law, who is such a piece of shit throughout the movie. You just love to hate this guy. You couldn't wait to see this guy get his comeuppance, and Mel Gibson gives him his comeuppance at the end of the film in a very crowd-pleasing final battle. His character triumphs, and he comes out alive, and he can still raise the rest of his children, and he gets his house rebuilt. Benjamin actually gets a good ending, and he finally overcame his war PTSD in the end. Right there, finally came at peace with his past. Now, does the movie have any bad qualities? Well, I guess there is. I mean, I would say if you prefer accuracy, this movie might kind of bug you a bit because, I have mentioned this before, it's not really 100% accurate to the source material. And some of those slow-mo shots do get a little bit excessive. I will admit that. And I kind of wish we saw a little bit more of Gabriel and Anne's relationship. But other than those, I think The Patriot is a very underrated gem, even if not historically accurate, and you should definitely watch this if you like films like Braveheart and Gladiator. So in the end, I would totally watch it by The Patriot for collection for sure, no doubt, because it's a terrific historical epic as good as Braveheart and Gladiator and one of Roland's best films. Anyways, that's it for my review of The Patriot, and we're going to rank The Patriot. Here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you want to see a historically inaccurate epic that is still good despite the inaccuracies, then I would totally watch it by The Patriot for collection for sure, no doubt. And if we're going to rank The Patriot, I'm going to give The Patriot a 9 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That wraps up my review for The Patriot, and yeah, this is my background for Up North this week. Yeah. But, yeah, so the trip's going well so far. And especially like this, it's been almost a year now since I now got this new tripod equipment, and I'm now more familiar with how I use it. But yeah. I want in the comments down below what you guys think about The Patriot. And until then, that'll be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, and don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.